Welcome everyone, and thanks for tuning into ANA Webinar Wednesdays. Today's presentation is Next Gen Influencer Marketing, Ways to Find the Right Partners by Ken Krasnow from Henkel Consumer Goods. Ken, please take it away.
Thanks, Barbie. So I'm Ken Krasnow, Vice President of Henkel's Omnichannel team, and I'm very excited to talk to you about Next Gen Influencer Marketing. At Henkel, I run the Omnichannel group, which consists of media, digital marketing, shopper marketing, in-store promotions, merchandising, and the consumer call center. So I've got a clear view into all of what we're doing from a B2C marketing perspective. And I have to tell you, influencer marketing is only growing in importance, and that's what makes this topic just so interesting to me, and I'm sure to you as well. Hey, I think 2018 is certainly the year of the influencer. Once touted as a fad, there's no doubt influencer marketing is having a tremendous impact, as evidenced by the fact that 94% of marketers found the tactic effective. I'd argue using influencers should be thought of as a strategy rather than a mere tactic. Influencers and their content can be useful for educating consumers, building brand awareness, launching new products, and so much more. So, where's influencer marketing headed? The days of mommy bloggers are certainly long over, and by the way, they hate being called mommy bloggers. Influencer marketing is rapidly evolving to scale and provide the measurement that we as marketers need to make informed and more precise decisions. You'll see tremendous change on the measurement front as well. This timeline shows how our influencer marketing partner, Collective Bias, is at the forefront of helping clients like Henkel understand the value of influencers by tying in our data and overlaying third-party solutions to understand how influencer content can drive redemptions, in-store traffic, and sales. And the future will hold even more innovation as leveraging AI and natural language processing, deep learning, neural networks, and more to help marketers better select influencers, determine the right content, create basket co-op affinities, provide audience insights, and create smarter solutions at scale. With that being said, even if you're a seasoned influencer marketer or just new to influencer marketing, I'm sure you have a number of burning questions. Today, I'm going to focus on answering these 4 questions. I'll also show you 2 successful cases of how Henkel executed influencer campaigns with Collective Bias, our influencer marketing agency, and I'll highlight the lessons we learned along the way. So I won't read all these questions, but we'll go over each one in order. So let's get started. The first question you might be asking yourself is influencer marketing all that important? Well, I think you can tell by my introduction that my answer would be yes. And as I alluded to, I think today more than ever, including influencers is an important part of the marketing mix. The real question is why? Because unfortunately 73% of people wouldn't care if brands disappeared from their lives. Today we live in the sharing economy, and people are your most important growth engine. And the content people create has become the ads that people trust most. And that content that everyday people are creating is playing an important role for marketers all along the fragmented path to purchase. And I won't clear all the stats here, but you can see that these are the most popular digital destinations, and influencer content can be used throughout the entire marketing ecosystem. And we'll talk more about that later. Just remember, the one most important thing is it's all about content. People don't share your brand because they like your brand. They share your brand because they like their friends. And the content you create has to be valuable. And that means it's either got to be useful or entertaining. In fact, I usually think of content as solving one or more of these 4 things. It should be educational, inspirational, fun, and or have some utility. Regardless of which of the 4 things or all of them, content should usually be surprising and useful or, and certainly easy to consume. So the second question is, what's the right balance between quantity and quality of influencers? It's confusing, isn't it? And there are all kinds of names that are bantered about, whether it's, web celebrities or tastemakers or expert influencers. Where's a marketer to begin? Well, let's take a look at this inverted triangle here and the different classifications, and then we'll dig a bit further down to perceived levels of influence. I mean, you start at the very top with celebrities, and those are people that we all know, like Katy Perry and Beyonce and Jay-Z and people of that nature. And they're out there involved with brands. You've got some pros and cons to working with celebrities, which we'll get, into in a little more detail. You've got web celebrities who, have a bit less reach than the celebrities that we just mentioned, and those are people that are basically, popular and have amassed massive followings from their internet activities alone. Then you've got influencers, right? And these folks cross multiple platforms, and for them, social media is a business. And these folks are the cream of the crop that we found. Below that, from a reach perspective, you have hobbyists for whom blogging is an outlet for voicing ideas, maybe even avoiding isolation. They're still important as they're close to their audiences, and although small, they can exert power over buying decisions. Further down the reach scale here, you have advocates, and these are folks that we know in our everyday lives. They're super fans of brands. They're super loyal. They engage with a brand because they truly love the brand. They may be a follower on a brand's Facebook or Twitter channel, but might not have kind of social presence of their own. So in terms of leveraging advocates for influencer marketing, I think there's probably more limitations there. Then you have fans, and they like the brand. They don't necessarily advocate for it on social platforms, but think about Harley-Davidson fans, for example, and how they'll tattoo the brand on their skulls. If you can tap into that level of fandom in some creative way, I mean, more power to you. We spend our time mostly with influencers, and we do that because we think about what makes somebody influential. And for us, influencers have that right mix of reach and engagement. There are 4 components that make somebody influential. One is reach. How big is their audience? Relevance. How relevant is their content? The relationship with their audience is super important, and that's tied to number 4, which is engagement. Is the audience highly engaged with their content? What's the likelihood the audience will engage with whatever the influencer posts? Marketers need to make trade-offs, which is why different types of influencers play different roles in a marketer's plan. If you have a new brand, for example, you might go for a celeb influencer with very broad reach, but you're going to sacrifice engagement. We've worked with celebrities in the past, and we thought that was a pretty interesting way to tout a new brand. What we found, though, was that the audience was far more interested in the celebrity and other content that was more germane to what made that celebrity famous than our product at all. So we had very, very low engagement. Since we find engagement really correlates to purchase, we go for a smaller, closer audience of an influencer, which would be a micro-influencer, and that those audiences are highly engaged and more, our content is more likely to motivate a behavior change and, instigate a purchase. Let's just talk a little bit more about these 4 dimensions, right? So reach, describing a person's sphere of influence, how many people they could, they potentially reach. It's positively correlated to impressions, but it's inversely correlated to engagement, right? We all know that impressions are really important, but, they're only the beginning of the story, right? It's super important that our content also lands with people, and that gets to relevance, right? And this is, this is critically important for an audience, and it goes hand in hand with the importance of trust. Will the audience believe you, what you have to say? This is why language has changed so much. Brands and their agencies spend hours crafting messaging and visuals, but average consumers like how their friends speak. And even the graininess of a photo can telegraph being real. Trust only comes from cultivating your relationships. It's not about publishing content. Engaging with your audience is really, really key, and building that audience. I mean, you only have to check any social media platform to see people with hundreds of thousands of followers. And while that indicates an audience, the measurement brands should look for is the engagement. We like to look at what's called the amplification rate. This is a historical data point that can predict how well an influencer's audience will engage with the content. I think that this chart here is very helpful, and it underscores a really important point. Collective Bias, our influencer agency, examined their influencer community and their content over a 7-month window, and they found that campaign engagement increased positively as social reach increased until the point of diminishing returns. And the sweet spot was somewhere in the middle of this chart for us at about 100,000 followers. So that's really what we're looking for. And that's why influencers are more important to us versus, traditional celebrities. How does influencer marketing complement brand marketing? Well, as the head of Omnichannel, I also have to be supporting brand marketing strategies. So how does influencer marketing complement that? Well, in a host of different ways. And I'll walk you through this very high level, this chart at a very high level. But every marketer needs to start with understanding, first and foremost, the business objectives, and then map out the KPIs, or key performance indicators, associated with those objectives. So, for example, if your goal is brand awareness, you want as many impressions and share of voice as you can get. In this case, you might want a high-reach influencer. If you're looking for audience growth, you may want to measure an influencer's ability to drive signups. But all across this chart, and the associated content can play a role. Brand awareness, even long-form influencer content, can help the brand and customer support answer questions that the audience has. Influencers also have been known to create new usage cases for brands, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Once you've determined your goals and KPIs, you can start to give consideration to influencer selection and content. Different platforms reach different audiences, and different types of content perform better. Video, for example, is going to perform better on Facebook and YouTube than it will on Twitter or a blog, typically. The next question is, what are the best-in-class tips for building a relationship with influencers? And we've talked about KPIs, extremely important in setting those. But, let's take a look at this next chart here, and it really highlights some of the things that you really want to keep in mind in terms of best-in-class guidelines. Hey, look, when reaching out to influencers, I wouldn't recommend starting with, dear blogger. Don't hand them content and ask them to syndicate it for you. That's really not influencer marketing. Don't expect free product or work in lieu of payment. Influencers are in this as a business and expect to be paid for the value and their social currency that their content ultimately affords them. Don't start until you've done your homework and put some thought into the mutual benefit value exchange. What's in it for them to have a relationship with you and your brand? And they're looking for a lot more than money. They want a long-term relationship and association with your brand. Establish clear guidelines and goals. Don't change the instructions midstream. They hate that. Just like any above-the-line or below-the-line agency, it doesn't work for influencers either. Take the handcuffs off. Let them be creative. I know that can be scary, but you're going to get your best content. Ask them for their opinion. They want to help your brand. Trust that they know their audience and what content will resonate. Give the influencer feedback. They want to improve and learn what brands want. And don't forget to leverage their content on the brand's channels. Show them some love. They'll certainly appreciate that. Now I thought I'd take you through a couple of case studies with regards to how Henkel has used influencer marketing. The first one here is the Schwarzkopf Keratin Color case study, and our goal was to drive brand awareness. Keratin is typically available only at salons, and it's expensive. Our goal was to drive awareness that it's in stores now and encourage trial by driving people to a Try Me free rebate. The campaign strategy was to leverage users that engage with social content to spread the word and retarget with social content ads. We want to stress the professional color at home benefit with results that last and educate consumers on our social action in partnership with Dress for Success. Our strategy was to leverage high-reach Instagram, the high-reach Instagram platform, which is a key tactic that drives most social engagement within hair. You can see by these posts here that we got some really nice interaction from the influencers' audience. You know, they talked about how important hair is to them and how beneficial the content was, and that made us feel really good from an engagement perspective. You know, and when you look at some of these numbers here, you can see that, you know, we really felt good about this campaign in its totality. We had a lot of content views, more than what we benchmarked. Time on content, absolutely critical for us, over 2 minutes on average. We expected a bit under 2 minutes, which is, you know, still fantastic. But think about it, you know, a typical display ad is considered viewable if 50% of the pixels are visible for a second. You know, here you're spending about as much money from a CPM perspective. Our typical CPMs are, I mean, it could be anywhere from, you know, mid-2s to, you know, mid-5s. You know, and look at the engagement that you're getting, the time of the content. That's absolutely incredible. You know, and then click-through. Remember, we were trying to drive people to a free rebate. So click-through was an important objective for us. And you can see we absolutely blew away we blew away the industry benchmark, which you all know is, you know, is pretty small, but we also exceeded our goal. Now, we don't typically share financial information, but I'll tell you, influencer marketing has among the best returns on ad spend. Outside of email, it's, you know, it's number 2. And so we always feel good consistently about the ROAS that we get. You know, another interesting use case, you know, is 20 Mule Teen Borax. You know, like it or not, today's social shoppers can often discover and spread and create new usage occasions, even if those occasions are not really sanctioned by the brand. You know, and I think you may remember there was a big slime fad, and you had people on all kinds of daytime television shows you know, making slime for their audience, and borax was one of the key ingredients. Not something we're trying to encourage. So we wanted to leverage influencer marketing to show the many approved usage occasions for borax. And borax is, beyond being a fantastic detergent booster, it is wonderful at cleaning all kinds, or tackling all kinds of jobs around the house, including cleaning, you know, hard surfaces and windows, you know, all sorts of things. You know, it's been in homes for, you know, basically it's in millions of homes for decades, and it really wasn't until we took an active role to popularize some of these extended usage occasions that we got some just tremendous feedback from consumers and how excited they were about the brand. Our goal was to create, for this campaign, social buzz and awareness among millennials in particular, and encourage trial of this brand as millennials are forging out on their own, establishing homes for themselves, coupling up, you know, having children, that type of thing, making brand decisions. This was a Once again, a very successful campaign. We had tremendous engagement with our influencers' content. Here's Amy, and she's an influencer of ours, and her husband was around the house kind of demonstrating all the different use occasions for borax, and we got some really nice feedback on this post and many, many others. And like the previous program, the results were really good. Once again, average time with our content, just about 2 minutes. That's just absolutely fabulous. And we wanted people to click through, so that was a goal. We wanted them to go deeper and understand the brand and all the usage occasions even more. And we had a good click-through rate as well. ROAS, of course, was right where we expected it to be, consistently very, very strong performer from that perspective. So, you may be asking yourself right now, what are the best-in-class guidelines to follow? And, we've talked about this a couple of times, but I think making sure you're really clear on your KPIs. As you've heard from me, driving awareness, has been, an important KPI. Driving click-through rate, driving deeper levels of cognition, right? By getting people to spend a lot of time with the brand's content, super, super important. Providing clear guidelines to the influencers. We've talked about that. Really taking the time to write a brief and sharing that brief with them, getting their input, taking the handcuffs off, stepping back, allowing them to create and develop content in their, in the voice and the tone that they're accustomed to doing and that their audience expects. You want to review the influencer and their content really closely, right? The influencer's posts that you look at before you, establish a relationship with them should all kind of tell a story, right? There should be a consistent kind of look and feel, to their hub, to their website, to their social media platform. And their content generally should look like a really good editorial piece. Overall, the influencer site should be kind of clean and inviting. They should have great visuals, large, colorful pictures sprinkled throughout their posts, really pulling the reader down into more and more content. You want to look for original photography. You don't want to see a lot of stock photos out there. Are they using prominent social sharing icons? Do their posts have a clear call to action to drive social action? The site should be designed for social engagement, so whether they're polls, comments, giveaways, sweepstakes, recipes, all of this contributes to, overall, better engagement. Does the influencer post regularly and often? Lots of activity correlates to lots of engagement, so you want to look for that. And finally, you want to make sure that FTC regulations are really conspicuous and at the top of every post. And I stated the last best practice twice because I think it's maybe the most important. Leverage this content beyond just the influencer campaign. Port it over to product detail pages, to websites. Make sure you're generating all this wonderful, authentic brand love that you're getting from the influencer and their community, as much as you can. Really syndicate it. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you found this to be interesting and actionable. That was my goal, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much, Ken. Great job with this. We have a few minutes for questions, and we'll get to those shortly. Quick reminder again to everyone, you can continue to make questions now using the Q&A window on your screen. So the first question here we have is, what do you think about using influencer-created content in traditional media channels like print or broadcast?
Well, I think it can be great. In fact, we've done it in the past where we had an influencer tell a very heartwarming story about one of our brands, All Free Clear. This particular influencer was also a nurse, and she had a child with sensitive skin issues. And she talked about, the pain that that child would go through with, rashes and itchy skin until she found the right detergent, which was All Free Clear, which happened to be #1 recommended by doctors and dermatologists and pediatricians. And she told her story, and she told in the form of video. And it was a beautiful video, and it was so powerful that we actually replaced our TV campaign that we were running with her video, and we ran that, and we got tremendous response. And, we believe our sales lift at the time was positively correlated to that. So I think it's something to consider.
That's great, thank you. How would one know what social channel would drive the most results for their industry? For example, it was mentioned that Instagram was best for hair products. Is there a study or accepted standard available?
Well, because influencer marketing is an extension of a strong social media strategy and program, it's important to regularly review channel performance for your brand to understand which channels boost the most engagement for your brand and its respective audience. I mean, there isn't really a set standard, but Instagram is certainly one of the leaders based largely on its volume of active users. Many of the channels release reports on usage and trends, and these occasionally drill down by category. And while these are helpful insights, they should be seen as a complement to the data you're able to pull from your own respective channel performance.
Thank you. The next question here is, in one of the slides you mentioned Twitter parties. What is it and how could it be used to drive people to our events?
Sure. Yeah. Twitter parties are also known as Twitter chats, and these are typically dedicated one-hour conversations on Twitter guided by a single hashtag. And brands and organizations and influencers have been known to host and typically follow a loose Q&A format with 5 to 10 questions that participants can chime in and answer. And in some chats, brands will host and moderate a Q&A with an influencer or a group of influencers, and then the broader chat participants are more likely an audience chiming in with commentary versus direct answers to the questions. These can be facilitated in various ways and can be a great tactic for staking claim to a conversation or a topic or a trend.
Thanks. It would be nice to know what tools, platforms you use to identify and vet influencers.
Sure. I mean, there are plenty of tools and platforms, but there isn't a single perfect one. Hyper, Julius, Tracker, InfluencerDB, etc. They're all kind of great options. There are some more niche platforms and others that boast identification tools within a finite proprietary network. They all have their respective pros and cons. Look for tools that allow you the flexibility to narrow search parameters by things like engagement rate, follower growth rate, audience size. Tools that include some sort of a CRM functionality to track communication experiences should be considered.
Thank you. The next one we have here is there a difference between the way you use social influencers, real people influencers, versus one-to-many celebrity influencers? For example, radio personalities, celebrities, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. ROI is not equal, nor is return on engagement. Micro-influencers are especially popular because they bring the right ratio of reach to engagement, making their content both discoverable and actionable. The higher you go with reach, there's eventually a tapering off point, which we discussed in the presentation, where you're just no longer getting such strong engagement. Because the audience is just so big and impenetrable. As a result, using a celebrity's likeness may be more valuable than having them produce content for you, or using them for a takeover on your website or Twitter chat during a dedicated time frame may be just right for visibility. If you're looking for action and conversion, going micro enables you to tap into an audience with actual purchase intent versus a purchase aspiration.
Thanks. I'd like to hear your thoughts about fake followers and influencers using bots or pods to get more likes. Should we, the brands, be concerned about that?
Yeah, brands should invest their energy in being vigilant. Some safeguards include investigating engagement rates. Too high or too low should signal potential follower fraud. Evaluating the comments for relevance and resonance, analyzing the geographic makeup of an influencer's audience, and using tools like Moat to verify eyeballs on paid activations. These are all, helpful things to do.
Thank you. Curious to hear your thoughts on levels of investment. How much should compensate influencers?
There are many factors that go into influencer fees, so it's hard to give an exact range, but consider the program scope, the terms of the engagement, right? The content usage rights, use of likenesses, content distribution, asks, things of that nature. And past brand partners that the influencer has worked with. Program scale will also impact the fee, as well as the objectives and KPIs. I mean, most influencers have rate cards and are willing to negotiate based on how many activities you're engaging in with them. Some emerging influencers may be open to barter opportunities. In addition to influencer fees, it's also important to earmark a budget for social ads, ongoing surprise and delight packages, and are also things to consider when you're thinking about budget.